For decades, Nikki Newman has survived nearly everything Genoa City could throw at her. Broken relationships, family betrayals, personal demons, public scandals, and some of the most emotional storylines in the Young and the Restless history. So when Nikki faced yet another health crisis, viewers naturally assumed it would be another chapter in a familiar story of resilience and recovery. But according to Melody Thomas Scott, this time was different. Not necessarily because the danger was greater, not because the stakes were higher, but because the emotional reality surrounding Nikki's struggle touched something deeper than many fans realized. For an actress who has portrayed Nikki for more than 4 decades, recognizing something unique about a storyline is significant. And it raises an intriguing question. What exactly made this crisis stand apart from everything Nikki has faced before? The answer reveals why some of the most powerful Y and R stories aren't about physical challenges at all. They're about vulnerability. #Melody Thomas Scott reveals what made Nikki's new health crisis different on Y and R. Few characters in daytime television history have experienced a journey as rich, complicated, and emotionally layered as Nikki Newman. For more than 40 years, viewers have watched her transform from a troubled young woman into one of Genoa City's most influential figures. Along the way, she has endured hardships that would overwhelm almost anyone. Yet Nikki always finds a way forward. That's one reason audiences remain deeply invested in her story. She represents resilience, strength, survival, the ability to recover even after life's most painful moments. But according to Melody Thomas Scott, Nikki's most recent health crisis carried a different emotional weight than many of the challenges that came before it. And understanding why helps explain what makes great soap opera storytelling so powerful. Nikki has never been defined by weakness. One of the most important aspects of Nikki's character is that she rarely allows herself to appear vulnerable. Strength has become part of her identity. Not just public strength, personal strength, emotional strength, family strength. For years, Nikki has positioned herself as someone others can depend upon. When family members struggle, she provides support. When crises emerge, she helps restore stability. When relationships fracture, she often becomes the voice of reason. That role creates expectations. People expect Nikki to be strong. They expect her to persevere. They expect her to recover. The challenge is that even strong people experience moments when recovery feels difficult. Those moments reveal something deeper, something more human. This crisis was about more than physical health. What separates memorable health storylines from forgettable ones? Emotion. Physical symptoms create concern. Emotional consequences create connection. Viewers don't simply respond to medical problems. They respond to fear, uncertainty, isolation, loss of control. Those experiences feel universal. Nikki's latest health challenge appears to have tapped into those emotions in a particularly meaningful way. The situation wasn't merely about what was happening to her body. It was about what was happening to her sense of identity. That's a much more complex issue, especially for someone accustomed to being strong. The fear factor changes everything. Health crises often introduce a specific kind of fear, not dramatic fear, personal fear, the quiet kind, the kind that emerges when certainty disappears. Nikki has spent much of her life projecting confidence. She faces problems directly. She confronts challenges aggressively. She refuses to surrender easily. But health struggles create unique circumstances. Determination alone cannot solve everything. Willpower alone cannot guarantee outcomes. Suddenly, even the strongest individuals must accept uncertainty. That reality can be frightening. It can also create extraordinary storytelling opportunities, because vulnerability often reveals aspects of characters that viewers rarely see. Melody Thomas Scott understands Nikki better than anyone. One reason these observations carry such weight is because they come from Melody Thomas Scott herself. Few performers know a character as intimately as she knows Nikki. After decades in the role, she understands Nikki's strengths, her weaknesses, her fears, her motivations, the emotional nuances that casual viewers may overlook. When an actor with that level of experience identifies something unique about a storyline, it's worth paying attention. They recognize differences that others may miss. They understand when a story explores familiar territory in a new way. And they recognize when a character faces a challenge that feels fundamentally different from previous struggles. Aging changes the conversation. Another possible reason this storyline resonates involves perspective. As characters age, health stories often carry different emotional implications. Youth frequently creates assumptions of recovery. People expect setbacks to be temporary. They expect resilience to prevail. Later in life, those assumptions become less automatic. Health concerns begin raising larger questions. Questions about independence, questions about mortality, questions about the future, questions about legacy. Those themes naturally create richer emotional material. For a character with Nikki's history, they become especially powerful. Victor's role matters more than ever. Any discussion about Nikki inevitably includes Victor Newman. Their relationship remains one of daytime television's most enduring partnerships. Over the years, viewers have watched them survive countless obstacles. Sometimes together, sometimes apart, but always connected. Health crises often transform relationships. They reveal priorities, they expose fears, they test emotional bonds. Victor frequently presents himself as invincible. Health challenges involving Nikki remind viewers that even Victor experiences fear. Not fear for himself, fear for someone he loves. That distinction matters, because emotional vulnerability becomes more compelling when it affects multiple characters simultaneously. Family dynamics become more important. One reason health stories often resonate is because they involve entire families. A diagnosis rarely affects only one person. Everyone reacts, everyone worries, everyone adjusts. Different personalities respond differently. Some become protective, some become emotional, some become practical, some become overwhelmed. Watching those reactions unfold can be just as compelling as the health issue itself. Nikki's position within the Newman family makes this particularly significant. She's not just a patient, she's a mother, a wife, a grandmother, a source of stability. When someone occupying that role struggles, everyone feels the impact. Strength looks different during a crisis. One of the most fascinating aspects of Nikki's journey is how it redefines strength. Many people associate strength with control, confidence, authority, certainty. But health challenges often reveal another version of strength. Acceptance, honesty, patience, the willingness to ask for help, the willingness to admit fear. Those qualities require courage too. Sometimes even more courage. Nikki's storyline appears to explore this idea. The strongest person in the room isn't always the one giving support. Sometimes it's the one willing to receive it. Why viewers connected so deeply? The audience response to Nikki's situation highlights an important truth. People connect most strongly to stories that feel authentic. Not necessarily realistic. Authentic. The emotions must feel real. The fears must feel recognizable. The relationships must feel genuine. Health concerns affect nearly everyone in some way. Personally, through family, through friends, through experience. As a result, viewers often bring their own emotions into these stories. They recognize uncertainty. They recognize worry. They recognize resilience. That's why health storylines can become so powerful when handled thoughtfully. Nikki's legacy influences everything. Another factor separating this crisis from previous challenges is Nikki's legacy. After decades on the canvas, every major storyline carries historical weight. Viewers remember earlier struggles, earlier victories, earlier setbacks. Current events become part of a much larger narrative. That's one advantage enjoyed by long-running characters. History creates emotional depth. Nothing exists in isolation. Every new challenge echoes previous experiences. Every moment gains additional meaning because of everything that came before. Nikki's latest health crisis benefits from that accumulated history. The story was never about illness alone. Perhaps the most important observation is this: the storyline was never truly about illness. It was about vulnerability. Illness simply created the circumstances. The real drama emerged from emotional reactions. Fear, love, support, determination, connection. Those elements transform a health concern into a character story. And character stories are what soap operas do best. Medical details eventually fade. Emotional consequences remain. That's what viewers remember. Why Melody Thomas Scott's perspective matters. Actors often become advocates for their characters. They understand what works. They understand what feels repetitive. They understand what reveals new dimensions. When Melody Thomas Scott suggests this crisis felt different, she is speaking from decades of experience. She has portrayed Nikki through countless dramatic arcs. Few people are better positioned to identify meaningful distinctions. That perspective gives fans valuable insight into why this particular story resonated. Not because it was bigger, because it was deeper. The future could be changed forever. One interesting possibility is that the emotional impact of this storyline continues long after the immediate crisis ends. Major experiences leave marks. They influence decisions, they alter priorities, they reshape relationships. Nikki may emerge stronger, but she may also emerge different, more reflective, more appreciative, more aware of what truly matters. Those subtle shifts often create the best long-term storytelling, not dramatic transformations, meaningful ones. Final thoughts. Melody. Thomas Scott's reflections on Nikki's latest health crisis reveal something important about both the character and the actress who has portrayed her for decades. The storyline stood out not because Nikki faced danger. She's faced danger before. Not because she's struggled before. What made this chapter different was its emotional focus. It asked viewers to see Nikki not as the powerful Newman matriarch, not as Victor's legendary partner, not as Genoa City's survivor, but as a human being confronting vulnerability. And that vulnerability created something powerful. Because after decades of strength, viewers were reminded that courage doesn't always mean fighting harder. Sometimes courage means admitting you're afraid. Sometimes courage means accepting help. Sometimes courage means facing uncertainty without knowing how the story ends. Nikki Newman has spent years teaching viewers about resilience. This storyline taught something equally important. Even the strongest people need support. Even the strongest people experience fear. And sometimes those moments reveal the most extraordinary strength of all. That's what made this crisis different. And that's why fans won't forget it anytime soon.